Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive, crafted specifically for you. Today, we are unpacking a really fascinating study. It's titled Power Profile During Cycling in World Triathlon Series and Olympic Games.
Yeah, that was authored by Roberto Cejuela, Héctor Arévalo-Chico, and Sergio Sellés-Pérez.
Right, and it was published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine back in 2024.
A really landmark paper for sports science.
Totally. And our mission today is to kind of bridge that gap between high-level sports science and your practical understanding of athletic performance. We're going to figure out exactly what happens physiologically to elite triathletes on the bike course.
And what hidden factors actually dictate who wins?
Exactly. Because when we think about endurance sports, we usually picture, I don't know, a metronome. There's this expectation of a steady, unyielding rhythm.
Right, that classic cruise control idea.
Yeah, you survive the swim, hop on the bike, set your physiological cruise control, and just efficiently tick off the miles before the run. But, this data proves that cruise control button is entirely broken.
It's completely broken. I mean, that perfectly smooth line of effort is what the traditional time trial model taught us to expect.
But getting access to data from truly world-class athletes during actual chaotic competition is notoriously difficult, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly difficult. Usually, sports science relies on controlled laboratory conditions, which, strips away the reality of the race.
Which is why this paper is so brilliant.
Exactly. It captures the raw, unfiltered stress of the World Triathlon Series and the Tokyo 2021 Olympics. But before we get into that racing data, we should probably establish a foundation of scientific clarity.
Makes sense. Where do we start?
The core metric here is a power profile. In sports science, this is essentially a historical record of an athlete's capability to generate wattage under various circumstances.
Okay, so wattage, meaning the power output measures the actual mechanical work the athlete is doing.
Right. Completely independent of wind, road surface, or, their subjective feeling of fatigue.
Yeah, I see.
So a power profile maps out what they can physically sustain for 5 seconds, 30 seconds, an hour, and beyond.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can analyze how these athletes race, we first need to understand the biological engines they're working with, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the researchers didn't just guess at their fitness. They started this whole process in a laboratory, putting 4 male, elite, and world-class triathletes through an absolute torture test.
It truly is a torture test. The protocol is an incremental test to volitional exhaustion.
Volitional exhaustion. Sounds rough.
Yeah, it basically means going until you collapse. They put the athlete on an ergometer, which is a highly calibrated stationary bike, starting at a very easy 150 watts.
Okay, 150 watts. Not too bad.
Right, but then they increase the resistance by 5 watts every 12 seconds.
Oh, wow. Every 12 seconds.
Yeah, it might not sound like much initially, but it's a relentless creeping fatigue. The athlete pedals until they physically cannot turn the cranks anymore.
Until their muscles just simply fail.
Exactly. And while they endure this, they wear a sealed mask connected to a metabolic cart.
Which is measuring their breathing, right?
Yeah. It uses continuous gas analysis to measure every single molecule of oxygen they take in and carbon dioxide they exhale.
And the numbers that came out of those masks are staggering. We are talking about VO2 max scores of over 80 milliliters per kilogram per minute.
Which is just a massive number.
Yeah, for context for you listening, an average healthy young adult might be around, 40 or 45. We often use the cliche of a Formula One engine to describe these guys, but it's really more like an industrial-grade furnace.
I like that. The furnace analogy captures the mechanism perfectly.
Right, because an average person's metabolic furnace can only draw in so much oxygen to burn fuel before it chokes. But these athletes have ventilation systems that can suck in double the oxygen to keep the fire burning at maximum heat.
Precisely. Oxygen is the critical component that allows muscles to produce energy aerobically, meaning sustainably.
And how does that compare to other sports?
Well, to put an 80-plus VO2 max in a professional context, pure, dedicated road cyclists competing in the Tour de France often sit around 87.
Okay.
And top-tier marathon runners are right around 81. So these triathletes possess aerobic engines that are undeniably elite.
Truly world-class.
Yeah. And by analyzing that gas exchange, the researchers pinpointed 4 very specific power intensity zones based on metabolic thresholds.
Right, they established the first and second ventilatory thresholds, VT1 and VT2.
Yep, and maximal aerobic power, or MAP.
But instead of just listing acronyms, what do these thresholds actually feel like for the athlete?
Let's map it to the physical sensation. Phase 1 is below VT1. This is relatively easy aerobic work. The
Right.
athlete could hold a normal conversation.
Like going for a light jog with a friend.
Exactly. Then phase 2 sits between VT1 and VT2. The effort is moderate, breathing gets deeper, and conversation becomes broken sentences.
You're starting to work for it.
Right. Then phase 3 is between VT2 and maximal aerobic power. Now we're entering deep water. Lactic acid starts accumulating in the blood faster than the body can clear it.
That's the burn.
Oh yeah, it's very hard. Strictly one-word answers if you try to talk. And finally, phase 4 is anything above maximal aerobic power.
The red line.
The absolute red line. The body is demanding far more energy than oxygen can provide, resulting in pure, high-intensity suffering.
And you can only sustain that for, what, a few minutes?
Seconds to a few minutes before total muscle failure.
Which brings up a really common assumption about triathletes. Because they split their training between swimming, biking, and running, people often assume their cycling numbers must be a tier below pure dedicated cyclists.
It's a very common assumption, yeah.
Right. So are their power thresholds actually that impressive compared to the guys who only ride bikes for a living?
What's fascinating here is that their relative power at those critical sub-maximal thresholds, VT1 and VT2, is slightly higher than under 23 professional cyclists.
Wait, really? Higher than the U23 pros?
Yeah. They only sit slightly below the absolute top-tier Grand Tour professional cyclists.
That is wild.
But crucially, when you compare these elite numbers to amateur triathletes, the gulf is astronomical.
Right.
The elites have vastly superior physiological profiles across every single metric. This firmly establishes that the elite triathlon bike leg is absolutely not just a transition between the swim and the run.
It's a grueling, world-class athletic feat entirely on its own.
Exactly.
Okay, so they have these absolute freak-of-nature metabolic furnaces,
Yeah.
but having an unbelievable engine doesn't matter much if you're stuck in chaotic traffic.
Right, you have to be able to use it.
So when we look at the actual race data on the course, are they just putting the pedal to the floor and holding a steady wattage?
Well, that brings us to the core revelation of this study. The researchers analyzed 20 actual races across the World Triathlon Series and the Tokyo Olympics.
And they were tracking incredibly detailed GPS and power meter data, right?
Yes.
And their speed was mind-blowing. The average speed across these 20 races was 41.4 kilometers per hour.
Which is incredibly fast to hold for an hour.
Yeah, and they were averaging a relative mean power of 4.2 watts per kilogram. So on the surface, that sounds like a very fast, very steady effort.
The averages deceive us, though. To understand the true biological toll, the researchers utilized the variability index, or 6.
The variability index.
Yeah, this metric exposes the hidden stress of a race.
Let me stop you there, because variability index can sound a bit like a math textbook. The study says VIG is normalized power divided by mean power.
Right.
So mean power is just the basic average wattage, right?
Yeah.
Just total work divided by time. But normalized power represents the true cost on the body.
Yes, and that true cost is what dictates race survival. Imagine two riders. Rider A pedals at a perfectly steady 250 watts for an hour.
Okay, like a metronome.
Exactly. Rider B sprints at 500 watts for a minute, coasts at 0 watts for a minute, sprints at 500, coasts at 0 over and over.
That sounds miserable.
It is. Both riders will have a mean power of 250 watts. Their average is identical. But Rider B will be physically destroyed, their legs flooded with acid.
Wow. Because of the spikes.
Right. Normalized power uses a mathematical algorithm to heavily weight those massive spikes, reflecting the disproportionate physiological damage they cause.
Got it.
So the variability index takes that normalized true cost and divides it by the simple average. A VI of 1.0 means perfectly steady.
And what did the data show for these triathletes?
Anything above 1.1 indicates a highly intermittent, highly damaging effort.
And the 7 values in these triathlon races were soaring past that 1.1 mark.
Oh, easily.
So they didn't mirror a steady time trial at all. They mirrored a criterium race, which, for you listening, is a short multi-lap bike race on a closed city circuit where riders are constantly sprinting violently out of sharp corners.
The power graphs from the study illustrate this chaos beautifully. You don't see a flat line. You see a jagged heartbeat.
Up and down, up and down.
Yeah, massive spikes up to 700 or nearly 800 watts for a few seconds, followed by periods of 0 watts where they are coasting.
And then instantly back up to 600 watts, over and over.
Exactly. Over 37% of the total mechanical work they did in the races was spent in phase 4.
That absolute red line zone above maximal aerobic power.
Yes, it was brutal.
Wait, if the power is spiking to 800 watts and then dropping to zero that frequently, it has to be because of the hills, right? Going up requires more watts.
You'd think so.
Yeah, I mean, fighting gravity requires massive wattage, and then you just coast down the other side. That seems like the obvious culprit.
It is the most logical guess. And in pure road cycling, topography absolutely dictates the power output.
Right.
But the data completely debunked that assumption for these races. The researchers found no significant correlation whatsoever between the uphill sections of the courses and the massive power output spikes.
Let me repeat that, because it flies in the face of everything we think we know about cycling. The hills did not cause the massive power spikes.
The topography was practically irrelevant to the extreme spikes.
That is insane. Why?
The researchers offer a couple of physiological and structural reasons for this. Triathletes generally have a lower anaerobic capacity than pure road cyclists.
Okay, so they're built for sustained aerobic endurance, not explosive uphill attacks.
Exactly. So they likely choose to climb at a measured, high aerobic pace rather than burning themselves out on the ascent.
That makes sense.
Additionally, the specific circuits analyzed in the World Triathlon series tend to feature shorter, punchier hills that don't necessitate a massive, prolonged shift in pacing strategy.
So if it's not the hills forcing these athletes to spike their power to 800 watts, what is the hidden variable? Is it wind? Is it jockeying for position inside the draft of the peloton?
To solve this mystery, the researchers employed the Delphi method.
The Delphi method, what's that?
This is a structured communication technique where a panel of experts, in this case, 3 elite triathlon coaches, work through rounds of questionnaires to reach a consensus. They meticulously categorized every single section of the race circuits into types. So you had uphill, downhill, flat, technical, simple curves, and dangerous curves.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When they overlaid the power data onto those categorized sections, the smoking gun wasn't the wind or the draft.
No, it wasn't.
The central, most surprising discovery of the paper was the impact of the dangerous curves per kilometer.
The dangerous corners dictated everything. They found a statistically significant positive correlation between the number of dangerous curves on a circuit and the amount of time the athlete was forced to spend suffering in Phase 4.
It's like driving in heavy city traffic versus cruising on a highway. It's not the distance that drains your gas tank. It's hitting the brakes for a tight corner, losing all your momentum, and then having to completely floor the accelerator to get back up to 40 kilometers an hour just to stay with the flow of traffic.
That mechanical analogy translates perfectly to human biology. When an athlete floors it out of a tight corner to get back to 41 kilometers an hour, they can't rely on their aerobic furnace.
It's too slow.
Right. They need instant explosive power. That forces the body to recruit fast-twitch muscle fibers.
And those are the powerful ones, but they burn out quick.
Right. Very quick. Fast-twitch fibers are incredibly powerful, but they are highly inefficient. They burn through stored muscle glycogen without using oxygen, which is an anaerobic process.
And the byproduct of burning fuel without oxygen is lactate.
Precisely. Lactate floods the muscle, which drops the local pH level.
Meaning it gets acidic.
Yes. That acidic environment, acidosis, is what causes that intense, agonizing burning sensation. It literally inhibits the muscle's ability to contract.
Oh, man. Now imagine flooding your legs with acid like that out of a dangerous curve, and then desperately trying to clear that acid from your bloodstream while you are still pedaling at 41 kilometers an hour on the straightaway.
Knowing another hairpin turn is coming in 30 seconds.
Doing that dozens of times a race is profoundly fatiguing.
It's exhausting.
And if we look at the race dynamics, this explains why some athletes break away and others completely crack. The study showed that athletes who can sustain and recover from these massive Phase 4 spikes perform significantly better.
Yes, the data revealed a strong correlation between the ability to handle these dangerous curves and the bike split result.
Which obviously directly impacts the final overall race position.
Absolutely. It highlights a critical skill gap. Triathletes with superior technical handling skills on the bike save an enormous amount of metabolic energy.
Because they don't have to brake as hard.
Exactly. If you can corner smoothly, choose the perfect apex, and carry your momentum through the turn, you might only need to push 400 watts to get back to race speed.
Whereas a poor cornerer has to spike their power to 800 watts to catch back up to your wheel.
Right. It's a huge difference.
Which also paints a really vivid picture of the chase groups. If you come out of the swim 20 seconds behind the leaders, you're desperate. You have to catch that front pack to share the wind resistance.
Oh, the psychology of the chase group completely alters the power profile.
Really? How so?
Well, the data suggests that chase groups are forced to take massive high-stakes risks on these dangerous corners to catch the leaders.
Ah, they break later.
Exactly. They break a fraction of a second later, they lean harder into the turn carrying more speed, and they sprint violently out of the apex.
Which leads to even more extreme power fluctuations.
It's a metabolic gamble. It's the only way to close the gap on a technical circuit, but they risk flooding their legs with so much acid that they completely blow up before the run.
So technical corners and the resulting fast twitch power spikes dictate the physiological toll of the race. But there is another major variable the researchers analyzed, and it really bends your brain.
The race distance.
Yeah. How does all of this physiological chaos change when you double the distance of the race?
So, in the World Triathlon Series, athletes compete in two primary formats: the sprint distance, which features a 20-kilometer bike leg, and the Olympic distance, which features a 40-kilometer bike leg.
And the researchers compared the power profiles between these two distances, and the findings are totally counterintuitive.
Very counterintuitive.
You would expect a longer race to mean a lower intensity.
Yeah.
But there were absolutely no significant differences in relative mean power, average speed, or the number of extreme power peaks above MAP per kilometer between the sprint and the Olympic distances.
None at all.
But hold on. Basic physiology and the power duration relationship tells us that if you go twice as far, you have to pace yourself and lower your average power. How are they maintaining the exact same intensity for double the time?
This raises an important question, and it deeply challenges our traditional models of endurance.
Right.
The traditional power duration curve is based on continuous, steady-state exercise, like riding a stationary bike at a constant wattage until you collapse.
But elite triathlon cycling isn't steady state.
No, it's a high-intensity, intermittent activity. Because they aren't holding one single agonizing wattage for an hour, the traditional rules don't perfectly apply.
Ah, because they get micro-recovery.
Exactly.
They sprint out of the corner, burn the matches, but then they get to draft or coast into the next corner for a few seconds.
The micro-recoveries are the key. The researchers concluded that because of the intermittent nature of the technical courses, the intensity remains identically brutal in both formats.
So the Olympic distance athletes don't slow down to pace themselves on the straights.
Nope. And they certainly don't corner any slower. They just have to endure double the time, double the dangerous curves, and double the total phase 4 work at that exact same intermittent high intensity.
The psychological toll of that must be immense. Knowing you are at the 20-kilometer mark, hurting just as much as you would at the end of a sprint race, but realizing you have to do the entire thing all over again.
The physical and mental toll is immense. And if we connect this to the bigger picture for coaches and athletes, the takeaway is absolute specificity.
What do you mean by that?
You cannot prepare for an Olympic distance race by simply riding long, steady miles on an open highway.
Because it's too steady.
Right. That builds the aerobic furnace, but it doesn't prepare the muscles for the acidosis. You have to aggressively condition the body to handle extended intermittent fatigue.
You have to train the physiological machinery to clear lactate and recover from phase 4 anaerobic efforts for twice as long.
And you have to do all of this knowing that the moment you step off that bike, your legs are flooded with acid, and you immediately have to run 10 kilometers at an elite sub-30-minute pace.
Unbelievable.
If you lack the specific metabolic conditioning to handle the dangerous curves on the bike, your run will inevitably fall apart.
It completely shatters the metronome myth. These athletes aren't robotic engines. They are highly dynamic machines, constantly adapting to a chaotic, high-stress environment, burning matches, and desperately trying to recover before the next corner.
Very well said.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today. So, what does this all mean for you? First and foremost, I strongly encourage you to seek out and read the full article by Cejuela, Arévalo-Chico, and Sellés-Pérez.
It's really worth reading.
Yeah, we've talked through the concepts, but looking at the actual power tables and the physiological data they published is eye-opening. Seeing the actual wattage numbers brings the reality of this intermittent suffering to life in a way that just hearing about it can't match.
It truly is a landmark paper. It shifts the entire paradigm for anyone interested in the true, unfiltered demands of endurance racing.
Absolutely. And before you go, please remember to follow the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another custom-tailored deep dive.
We've got a lot more coming.
But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on what we've learned today about the true hidden cost of those power spikes.
The hidden cost of the curves.
Right. We've seen that elite triathletes are profoundly fatigued not by the steady work, but by the dangerous curves that force them to stop, lose momentum, and violently surge.
Mhm.
It begs the question, how much energy are you losing in your own daily life or work by constantly stopping, context switching, and having to rev your mental engine back up to top speed?
That is a great analogy.
Every time you drop your focus to answer an email and then try to dive back into deep work, you're burning a cognitive match. Maybe we are all suffering from intermittent fatigue without realizing it. Think about your own cruise control and watch out for the dangerous curves.